My name is Cyril Lachel, and you're watching YOLO, the only show that's guaranteed to end in heartbreak. I'm taking the challenge to play every game with a you only live once sort of attitude. In this case, literally. I'll play exactly one life of every game, seeing just how far I can make it on a single turn. Today we're looking at Mighty Final Fight for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Released in 1993, this is an 8-bit reimagining of the classic arcade game. But don't expect a direct port, because Capcom has made a few substantial changes. Before we jump into Mighty Final Fight, let's first take a second to acknowledge just how different this opening cinema is. In the original arcade game, Madgear kidnaps Mayor Hagar's daughter and holds her for ransom. In this game, Belger is hoping to force Jessica into marrying him. While it's not exactly Blue's Clues, this version of Final Fight is definitely targeted at a younger audience. Let's go ahead and push the start button and see what happens. Already, this is better than the Super NES game. As you can tell, we're given a choice between Cody, Guy, and the mayor himself, Mike Hagar. Looks like everybody has unique stats and moves. Let's go ahead and pick Hagar, as I suspect that's who most people will want to see. So here we are in the slums. This is the first level, also the first level in the original arcade game. A lot of these levels are inspired from the original arcade game, which was later ported to the Super NES. You'll also notice here that these enemies are inspired from the arcade game. They're a little bit more simplistic, but unfortunately, none of the enemies have names. They're just known as enemies. We'll see boss names later on, and we'll get to that in a minute, but for now, all of these will just be known as enemy. Unfortunately, Hagar's punch doesn't give me a whole lot of reach, so you'll probably see me use a lot of his air kicks, or whatever you want to call it, his butt stomp thing. This game was originally released in 1993, which was a whole 2 years after the Super Nintendo game, and 6 years after the original arcade release. So by this point, Final Fight had been around for quite a while, and let's face it, a lot of people were already sick of this style of brawler. This was pretty much reflected in a lot of the reviews at the time. GamePro and other magazines complained that this game was very simplistic and button mashy and whatnot, but I would argue that this actually evolves Final Fight more than even the two Super Nintendo sequels did. There's a cool pile driver. This gives us a chance to level up our character. As you can see in the lower right-hand corner, we have an experience bar, or we have an experience level. This will give us new moves and life and whatnot, and that's actually a pretty exciting addition to Final Fight, if you ask me. Here's some platforming things. Not really platforming, I just have to dodge these barrels. That's new to Final Fight as well. I was never a big fan of the Super NES game, as it only allowed you to choose between two characters. It cut some of the levels, it changed the names, and it was only a single-player game. As you can tell there's Hagar's spinning move that's straight out of Street Fighter 2. Now, I was always more into Streets of Rage and all of those games that actually allowed two-player support and gave me a bunch of characters to choose from. And I had played the arcade game to death by the time the Super NES version came out. And I've always been a little upset that Capcom never released a sequel to this, as this really did have some good ideas in it. As we come up to the boss here, he's going to have a surprise for us. He's going to send us through the floor. Fallen, that should have killed us, but, you know. In the arcade, this character was known as Damned, but now, like the Super NES game, he's known as Thrasher. He wants me to join Madgear, but of course, that's not going to happen. So instead, we're going to fight. And I don't have much life here, so I want to be real defensive. Hopefully this doesn't go poorly. Alright, he has a pretty basic attack here. It looks like I can just butt stomp him as he gets close. Hopefully that will hold up for the next 3 hits. and then we'll move on to the next level. I don't want to die here in this first stage. We got to make it at least to the second stage. There are 5 levels total, 2 bonus stages. We probably will not see any of the bonus stages, unfortunately. Only one more attack, it looks like. There we go. No! Now one more attack. Let's get him. There we go. All right, round 1 clear. Let's move on to the next part of Metro City. And here we are in Riverside, which is yet another stage from the arcade. The nice thing about this game is there's no food in the garbage, or at least I haven't found any food in garbage cans yet. That's always something about that arcade game that vexed me. I never understood why anybody would eat a whole chicken in a garbage can. Even if you didn't play the original NES version of this game, there was a Game Boy Advance port with the Capcom Classic Mini Mix compilation. So you may have played the game there as well. That came with the original Strider, if I remember correctly. Apparently, the end boss in this game is a cyborg version of Belger, which I'm not even sure how that works, but maybe they'll get to that in one of the sequels or fan fiction. I don't suspect we'll see Capcom bring this series back anytime soon. Every time they have in the past, outside of just porting the arcade game, of course, every time they've tried, it's ended poorly. If anybody played Final Fight Streetwise, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is one of the final 3 games that Capcom published on the NES. This, along with Mega Man 6 and Chippendales Rescue Rangers 2. Looks like we have a little bit of life left. We're not even close to the boss, so this is not looking good. We need some life or something, because some health. Now I actually want to find a chicken in the garbage can. There's a telephone booth. You don't see a lot of those anymore. While I like the leveling up system, it's unfortunate that it happens so slowly. It looks like I get extra points for doing the pile driver and stuff. That's real risky. I'm not about to take a few hits just to get a couple of extra points. This should have been the point where our hero, Hagar, where he calls in backup. This is another part of the original arcade game that you probably will recognize. Alright, now here's Poison. You'll of course recognize her as one of the characters coming to Street Fighter 4, Ultra Street Fighter 4. That was just announced a couple of days ago. I don't like that naming convention because that's not something that's known to the Street Fighter universe. Uh-oh, running low on life. At least we get to see Poison in all of her skanky clothing. I only have 1 hit left, so I gotta make this count. Hopefully there's not a big guy coming up. Alright, we get... Oh, no! Oh. Well, folks, that's all it took was one nice big punch from that big guy. Well, what can I do? That's Mighty Final Fight. We made it almost to the end of the second stage out of 5, so, you got to see a little bit of it. Definitely hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to tell me a game you'd like to see me play on the next episode of YOLO. Don't forget to check out defunctgames.com. You can see the link right there. I'll see you next time on YOLO.